In this project, we are going to be adding color to a portrait using watercolor paints to create skin tones and hair colors and other tints and shades and background colors. So first, let's talk about the materials we're going to use. Our main material, of course, is our watercolors. This is the Crayola Education Watercolor Mixing Set. It's a little bit different to other watercolor sets. We'll talk about that. It includes this handy reference chart that talks about different techniques you can use and suggestions for mixing the colors and how to mix to get accurate primary and secondary colors. It also gives you the list of colors available in this set. So this set is nice because it actually has 2 primary yellow, which anyone that's done watercolors and done a watercolor set might notice that the yellows tend to run out very fast, so having 2 is great. There's also a red violet, a red orange, a turquoise, blue violet, black, and white. So that is a great selection for color mixing. It does also come with a synthetic paintbrush. We will be supplementing that brush with 2 additional brushes that are also synthetic brushes. For our palette to mix colors in, we can of course use the lid, but we will also be using some plates that I have on hand that I can mix colors in. We'll have a paper towel handy, some water, and for our practice colors, we'll just use some smaller pieces of paper before starting on our final image. So let's get started with mixing some colors. I am going to actually take this out of the lid because I don't want it to get paint on it. And the first thing we'll start with is mixing a skin tone. So I'm going to use the brush that it came with, and the first thing I'm going to do is wet the brush to activate the paint. And start with some primary yellow. Wash off my brush. Add some red orange. And I'm doing this with the particular portrait that we're going to be painting in mind, which is a pale skin tone. I am going to add just a smidge of turquoise to get a little bit more of an earthy tone to that orange. And then obviously our person is in orange, so we're going to be using a lot of the white. This is going to create a tint and also a more opaque paint. So I'm going to have the white off to the side here. And then I'm going to do just a little bit of that orange. And usually watercolor paints dry a little bit darker than the mixed color. So I'm going to test this out. And then try a little bit more. Until I get a color that I feel is a good skin tone, or a variety of skin tones, because there could be some darker shadows for our portrait. Now our painting that we're doing also has a bit of a bright pinkish red patterned scarf, and we might not necessarily follow the exact pattern, but we might want to get something that'd be a good shade. And this was just the red orange with the white. Try it with a little bit of the red violet. And the person that we're going to be painting actually has blue eyes, so now I'm mixing some of the blue violet with some of the turquoise to see if I can get a shade similar to Portrait. And because this is a mixing set, that's why almost every color that you need requires some mixing. So that I think would be good for the eyes. And the shirt is a very dark blue, so this is where, if you're very careful, you can add just a smidge of black, and that will darken a color. That would work for the shirt. Our person has blonde hair, so I'm going to start again with primary yellow. Seems to have a little bit of green in it, so I'm going to try to wash that away, because it looks like it's got a little bit of blue maybe on the brush that made that turn to a bit of a green. Decontaminate some of my paints. Now obviously blonde hair is not that bright a yellow, so this is where it's important to add the white. I'm going to put this on the same page as the skin tone, because some of these skin tones actually would be good in the hair color as well, but this would be the lightest part of the blonde hair. So we're going to have some paint for the portrait, and then we might embellish that a little bit more with colored pencils. As you can see, the lightly drawn image of the portrait has been securely taped down to a board. This will prevent the paper from warping and bending as it gets wet from the painting process. We are going to be painting the face and neck using the skin tone combination that we practiced with, and various amounts of white paint to get different tones, as well as a little bit of the pinkish red color paint for some of the areas of the skin tone. I'm working mostly looking at the different shades that I see with light and dark colors and reworking that as I go along. Now I'm beginning to work on the hair color, starting first with the palette that I've already got mixed from the skin tone where I see shades of that in the hair, and then going on to mix up a darker, more of a brown color for the darker parts of the hair, and then back to a mix of that primary yellow with white for lighter areas in the hair. As I'm painting the hair, my brush stroke should be going in the direction of the hair flow. This will give it a more realistic appearance. After working on the hair, I'm able to go back into the skin tones because the first layer of paint has now dried. I can then build up layers of darker and lighter tones and blend the colors through the transparent layers to create a more realistic appearance. Now I'm able to start working on the patterned scarf by mixing the pinkish red color using the red orange and the red violet. I'm not that concerned with getting the pattern completely accurate, but more of an impression or idea of what the pattern looks like. Now it's time to mix the shades of blue for the eye color and the shirt color. Using the shade of blue that was already mixed, combined with the turquoise and the primary yellow, it's time to paint in the more natural looking background with the impression of shrubbery and trees. So starting with the darker blue and laying that in where there is a darker area, and then adding to that with additional blue and additional turquoise and then yellow to mix to get a variety of greens for the background, give that impression of a abstract shrubbery area. After painting in the background, the face area is pretty much dry, so I can go back in with the smallest brush available to add some details for eyebrows and the eyelash area around the eye, as well as the pink area in the corners of the eye. Additional details beyond this will be added in a later step when the painting is completely dry using dry media. Be sure to check back in next time when we'll be using colored pencil to go back into this painting to add finer details as well as to enhance some of the color applications.